My husband and I are at that point in our lives where we have to decide if we want kids or not. And we were both no on kids. But someone is kind of changing their mind about it. But when I have like a perfect day like today where I go for a workout, get my lashes done, get high, and then pig out on sushi while not watching Frozen for the millionth time, I'm like, am I stupid for ruining a good thing?
How I knew I was ready to have kids from someone who was completely terrified. Number one, I started getting bored with the freedoms associated with being child-free. I would find myself at the cool restaurants, at the bars, like on trips, kind of just looking around being like, no, yeah, I get it, cool. And while we were out and about, I would start seeing young families. It was like they were no longer invisible, and I would clock them at the breweries and be like, interesting, looks like you guys are still living life. Something to think about. And like that started looking fun. Another thing, during the pandemic, I started truly enjoying being home and wanting to invest in like tailoring my environment and the atmosphere in my home to be one that's like peaceful and somewhere that I enjoy being. Like something shifted in my brain where I thought like maybe it wouldn't be oppressive or like a waste of my potential to make a home. I'll also add I was feeling burnt out in my career and I wanted to take a break from it. And lastly, I just felt like I was ready for a challenge in my life. Like I'd really been prioritizing fun, and all of a sudden I just thought like, I'm ready to work hard. Anyways, that's me. I'm always curious about other people's experiences. Like, did y'all reach a point mentally where you felt like you were ready, or did you never feel ready, or like, did you accidentally get pregnant? Like, just tell me your business, please.
Talk about having kids in your 30s or later. So like many millennial, I have been spending the last decade building my career, waiting for the perfect time. I actually didn't know if I wanted kids until about 4 years ago, but I still wanted to wait until I was 100% ready, not just financially, but like emotionally, mentally, everything. Now I'm 3 months from being 36 and I worried, did I freaking wait too long? It doesn't help hearing that 1 in 8 couples have a hard time having kids, and every doctor is like, you better get started. Because we all hear that it starts to decline after 32 or 35. I finally feel ready, but I also worry, did I wait too long? Question for you guys is, if you have kids, how long did it take you to get pregnant? Worries or any issues, or did you accidentally get pregnant and you're just popping out babies like rabbits? If you are a millennial and still don't have kids, or are still single, what are your thoughts? Do you feel pressure? Do you feel sad that you don't have kids, or you're glad that you're waiting? Or let me know your thoughts. I'm just curious.
Are kids worth it?
A kid's worth it 100%, man. Make babies out there, for sure. That's going to put a fire under your ass, actually, and make
Really?
you work 10 times harder, yeah.
Makes you a better man.
Oh, 100%. As soon as I had my first kid, I feel like that's when I really started doing stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because you're always less likely to do something for you, but, if your mom is in trouble or something like that, you're going to get up and you're going to go. You're always going to do something for someone else before you do it for yourself.
That's true. Interesting.
6 questions to ask yourself if you are trying to decide whether to have kids. Whether you have kids or not is obviously one of the most life-changing decisions that you can make, and one that I've struggled with a ton myself. I have done 2 podcasts with expert guests on the subject. That is where these questions come from. Number 1, are you ready for your relationship with your body and your desire for intimacy to change? Number 2, what feels larger, the grief of not having children or the grief of losing your current life? Number 3, do you feel like you're lacking for anything or missing anything in your life right now that a child would bring to it? Number 4, this is one of my favorites. Before you ask yourself if you want to have children, ask yourself if you want to have a child. My therapist guest who counsels people on this is a big fan of the option of just having one child. Number 5, what are your fears about having a child, and is there a pragmatic way to begin to address some of those fears? And then last, that same therapist says to aim for 80% confidence in your choice, knowing that it will rarely be at 100%. You're gonna regret either decision on a bad day. Which decision will you regret the least? Check out those pod episodes if you want a deeper dive, and be sure to follow for more tiny ways to change your life.
I got 3 looks, and that's it. Yeah.
Could I interest you in everything, all of the time? A little bit of everything, all of the time. Well, look who's inside again. CEO entrepreneur.
Okay.
If you are someone who isn't quite sure whether you want kids or not, I have some advice for you. As someone who's child-free by choice, I have heard all of the statements trying to invalidate that choice. But one of them is, don't worry, you will change your mind once you meet the right person. And that's like problematic on so many levels, but I do want to talk about it in regards to someone who maybe isn't quite sure if they want kids or not. Having kids is the biggest decision anyone can make in their life. It is the hugest responsibility you will ever have in your life. And I just want to advise you to not put that decision in the hands of your partner, in the hands of your partner's wants, needs, expectations, anything like that. It should be a decision that is more individual than it is for a partnership. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but hold on. Of course, when you're in a relationship, there are two people. It's very important that the two people want to have that baby and discuss that. However, your partnership with that person is not guaranteed forever. What is guaranteed forever is a child. We put so much weight into finding the right partner to have a baby with, but we really have to be comfortable with, is this a life choice that I want to live with, regardless of whether this partner is in my life or not? So yes, if you are deciding whether or not to have a baby with the partner that you're with, of course, needs to be the person that you actually want to have the baby with, but it's also very, very important to think about what you want from your life, and no one else's expectations or pressures should be affecting that.
People always ask, are kids worth it? Were kids worth it? No. No. Because now I have unsalted butter in my house, and I go and I make some toast and I accidentally put the unsalted butter instead of the salted butter on, and then you take a bite and then you realise that the rest of that toast is going to be the most disappointing heap of crap you'll eat all day. No. Kids are not worth it.
I'm genuinely asking parents out there, what makes kids worth it to you?
I know this is crazy hard to understand and totally counterintuitive, but before you have kids, your life is all about you. And while that sounds ideal, perfect, and something that you'd be loath to give up, the truth is that life feels so much better when something other than you is more important than you. So yes, it is worth all the sleepless nights. It is worth wearing your heart outside of your body. It is worth it to love someone that much.
Do I think everybody should have kids? Absolutely not. But I don't understand these people who are on my little feed here that are constantly saying, you people don't make kids appealing. Kids, you keep saying that kids are hard. And it just makes me laugh, because it's like, okay, so you're telling me that anything that was hard in your life wasn't worth it? Was college too hard, so you should just quit and that wasn't worth it? Is being a doctor too hard, so like doctors should just quit and not? Training for the marathon is just too hard, so just quit, it's not worth it. Almost all things that are great in life that you will accomplish are hard. Me and my stepmom had a really hard time growing up. I was an evil teenager to her. I don't know why she didn't ship me off to Australia. So just because it's hard raising kids, that doesn't mean it's not worth it.
Here's why it's worth it having children. People say all the time, why would I want to have kids? Like, I have so much freedom. Like, I don't want that responsibility. People just say it's hard and a struggle all the time. Why do it? Why is it worth it? It truly is just the experience. The experience of creating another human being. It's the experience of loving that human being more than anything or anyone else you've ever loved in your life. It's the experience of struggling and going through the everyday obstacles and learning through those struggles. It is the experience of learning to be present and savor all the small moments, because you see how fast time goes by raising a child. It is the experience of forcing yourself to grow and be a better person for that little human being. It is all these experiences, the good and the bad, that make it all worth it. Because in the end, I love who I've become as a mom.
Things that help me decide whether or not to have kids. In the last video, I talked about how this is something I agonized over for years. Something I started doing a lot of just naturally in my late 20s and early 30s is thinking through what my life might look like in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. And a lot of it was focused on career and ambition and things that I wanted. I realized that in a lot of those images, when I was picturing my life, there was a kid, one, maybe two at most. So I realized that I had to make this decision not just based on, do I want to have a baby? Because a baby is such a small phase. The next thing I started doing subconsciously is just kind of seeking out examples of people who were doing parenthood in a way that I liked. I know that there is so much outside of our control, and I know that the US in particular is a really shitty place to be a parent. It was easy to find examples of people who completely lost their identity when they became a parent, who were filled with all kinds of negative stories about how difficult it was. And the overall impression I was left with from those people is like, get ready, this is the hardest thing you'll ever do, and every moment of it is miserable. I don't want to downplay how hard it can be. I mean, I'm still pregnant, I haven't had the baby yet. Like, I'm sure there are days where it's really, really hard. But I also sought out examples of people who were doing things that I liked, people who were balancing careers and being a parent in a way that, at least from the outside, felt really natural and looked very appealing to me. The next thing that helps me decide is just realizing that there were a few things I had to cross off my list before I decided to even start thinking about trying to get pregnant. Not in a sense of like everything has to be perfect and all my ducks have to be lined up before I have a kid. But for me, it was quitting my 9-to-5 and getting my business to the point where it could support me full time. I did not want to be juggling a 9-to-5 and raising a baby, a child. And I knew that if I had to do both of those things, I would be resentful. I'm still planning to work in my business, like that's not changing, but I have flexibility now in a way that I didn't when I was working a 9-to-5. The last thing that helped me decide is like kind of woo-woo, so I'm hesitant to even say it, but it really was just trusting that if this is something that I was meant to do, it would happen. I think I just got to this place of inner peace about it. Like, you know, again, I could always see two versions of my life, one where I had a kid or two and one where I didn't, and I could find fulfillment and be content in both. It was just a matter of trusting that whatever's meant to happen will happen with this for me personally.
Are kids worth it? And I'm not going to answer the question and give you my opinion on like, are kids worth it, blah, blah, blah. Of course they're worth it. But what I am going to say is something that really bothers me in 2023, and I think is the essence of this question. I also want to say, I don't think everybody should have kids. I think it's like a decision you have to make, and you should do what's best for you in your life. For someone to say, is it worth it? In my opinion, I think the essence of that question means like, is it worth it if I'm going to be tired all the time? It seems like you guys are never happy. You complain, you say you can't sleep, you say that all of these things are happening. Like, why did you even have kids? That's what I think the, is it even worth it? Like, it seems like so much work. Is it worth it question comes from. The problem we have in 2023 with doing hard things and working is crazy to me, because some of the best things, actually the best things in life, are hard work. They take hard work to accomplish things. Anytime you've done anything, when you work hard at the gym, when you work hard to open a business, working on your marriage, building a family is the same thing. Not the same value, but the same concept. Doing hard things builds character. It teaches you lessons. It makes you happy. It creates beautiful, amazing things. And we have this idea like, why would I stop my party? Why, when I can travel all the time or go drinking or do whatever I want and spend money on all these things? When you say that to somebody that had kids because they wanted to have kids, it doesn't shine a light on the value of their children's life. Becoming a parent gives you a deep sense of purpose, of honor, of responsibility that you've never felt before. And although more vacations, for example, are really lovely, they don't compare to that like deep honor, purpose, and responsibility.
I saw this TikTok from this girl that was talking about like, are we as Zillennials going to have kids? Like, someone needs to tell us what we're going to all do. And fortunately / unfortunately, I have already taken the leap and I already have a baby. Now, I definitely don't think that having a baby is for everyone, and I also think that you do need to be well-resourced in order to, like, not fall apart as a human. Not just money, but, like, time, job flexibility, like, a lot of things that a lot of American women don't have. But if you are considering it, or you are pregnant and you're worried, or, like, whatever, here are some of the things that I have found to be significantly better about my life since having a baby. First, and honestly, like, this one trumps everything else. But I overcame so much fear by becoming a mom, and I feel like I've become more of myself. When you have a baby, you have to renegotiate every single relationship in your life. And not just like relationships with people, but also like relationships with food, with your body, with your in-laws, with money. But you kind of are coming from this energy of like, I don't have time for bullshit anymore. And so for me, I feel like I really became more of myself, and I finally worked through a lot of fears that I had been kind of like sitting on, things that I like knew that I needed to work on, but hadn't yet. I know that's kind of vague, but like as a writer, I feel like I'm able to write stories that used to scare me. I'm able to set boundaries with family. I officially pulled the trigger and removed my records from the Mormon church because it was so harmful for me and I didn't want my son to be part of it. I like generally feel like anything that isn't in alignment feels like it's radioactive now. Like I just don't have time for it. Second, and I guess this kind of goes along with the first one, but I really just did not realize how powerful I am. This specifically for me came from my birth, which I had an unmedicated, or like people like to say natural, but all birth is natural, an unmedicated home birth. And I labored for 36 hours. I know not everyone can have a home birth, like, you know, there are complications. And it actually was not something that I was planning on doing, but kind of got forced into doing at the like literally 39 weeks pregnant. But I honestly feel like I transcended as a human, and I just feel like I am more capable than like I ever have. And that kind of goes with the first one, where it's just like, I don't have time for bullshit. And actually my desires, my opinions, like all of that they matter, they're important. And most of the time they're correct, which is a huge leap from where I was before, where I was just kind of like constantly second guessing myself. I guess basically it's like, yes, there are obviously things that are different and challenging about having a kid, but I feel like I became more equipped, and that carried through in all areas of my life, like in the way that I interact with everything, not just like mom related things.
This conversation on if kids are worth or not, and I just want to give my 2 cents as a mom. My name is Catrice. I talk about millennial motherhood on my page, and I am a mom of 2. I had 2 under 2 during the pandemic. I'm in my 30s, and just a quick disclaimer, I have a husband who, outside of being pregnant with the babies, birthing the babies, and nursing the babies, does everything that I do as a mom outside of like some of the like executive functioning that I do on behalf of the household as it relates to the kids, birthday parties, meal planning, things like that, because I enjoy those things. He does everything I do. Diapers, bedtime, nighttime routine, you name it, he does it. So that's a disclaimer. The first thing that I will say is that is your baby. As the mom, that is your baby. We have 2 daughters. This is the same thing that we would tell our 2 daughters. Both of us together, him too. That is your baby. You have to be prepared to take care of that baby. Should anyone put themselves in a position to where they are no longer able or willing to take care of that child, it is your responsibility as the mom. It's just the way that it is. It is very nuanced and very detailed, but that's just the way that it is. That is your baby. Number 2, you need money. And you don't need money for the reasons that people say, food and shelter. I think we're phasing out as a society of this whole like, oh, all you need is love. No, I think that we're getting to the point where we're admitting that you do need money. But honestly, you don't need money for the things like food and shelter. Like, obviously, we've got to be able to move past that as a society and say like, that's like the bare minimum. Like, obviously you need money for those things. That's like, it's got to be obvious. But that's not why you need money. You need money to be able to have access to things that are going to help you and facilitate you and being a better human and a better person and a mentally stable person and parent for that child, because they do not deserve a frantic, stressed out, overwhelmed, overworked, all the things parent. They don't deserve that. That's why you need money, to be able to access and outsource. And those things cost money, because those things are going to put you in a position as the adult in the situation to be a better, more calm, more well taken care of human, so that you can be there for that baby. That's why you need money. Number 3, you have to be prepared for that child to grow up and be anything, good, bad, or indifferent. They can move away, never see them again, turn into a horrible person. You have to be prepared for that, because that child is their own person and they do not grow up and live for you. If you're prepared for all of those things, I think you're good.
I really need someone to tell me if having kids is worth it.
You know, I've passed this video like multiple times and I've always wanted to respond and I couldn't find the words, but I think I finally found them. I think if you're asking if kids are worth it, then you're not ready for parenthood. I know that sounds harsh, but you're just not. Parenthood is not about what you get, which is kind of what your question implies. Is it worth it? Am I going to get something out of this? It's all about what you give. First, no one can tell you what parenthood is going to be like. You want to know why? Because every person's parenthood is completely different. When you sign up to become a parent, you sign up for one of the wildest rides of your life that you have zero control over, zero preview of, and no one can tell you what's going to happen. You could have a genius that changes your life forever. You could have a kid with mental or health challenges that needs you to completely remodify your life. You could have an athlete that makes you spend every weekend on a soccer field that you hate, or you could have a theater student that has you attending shows left, right, and center. But through all that, you're going to have to figure it out. Now, I'm not saying that parenthood is without joy, please. There is joy in the giving. And I will tell you that kids for me are the biggest catalyst towards growth. They will test your marriage. They will test what you think about yourself. They will have, especially if you want to be a good parent, they will have you healing parts of yourself you never even thought of. They will bring you the highest joys and the hardest lows. And every stage will be different, you know. Also, I will say, as a woman, no matter what you do, no matter how great your husband is, no matter what, you will bear a lot of the physical burden of having children just because you're the one birthing them. It's a reality, a biological reality. It will also test your marriage and either make your marriage grow or really break it down. Kids don't heal a marriage, they really reveal it. And you will never, ever be the person that you are today again. Never. There's no going back, no matter what happens with that kid. So don't ask if kids are worth it. Ask if you're willing to go on a ride where nothing's predictable. There are going to be great moments and bad moments. And if you're up to giving that much of yourself.
I really need someone to tell me if having kids is worth it.
I actually went to therapy for this exact question, and I'll tell you what my therapist told me. So she basically says motherhood is a very universal path. So get a kid, raise a kid, right? But the individual journey and experience is so unique to every single mom that you're going to see moms who are YouTube and Instagram moms and magical pregnancy, magical birth, magical babies, magical partner, just everything is magic. But you're also going to see moms who are struggling. They're overstimulated, they're tired, their mental health, finances, relationship took a toll. Their kids just need more from them as moms. It's just a lot harder to be a mom. So she tells me, right, if you understand and accept that perspective, there are 3 things that you have to work through when it comes to figuring out this question. Number 1, do you accept terms and conditions? And that means, are you aware that being a mom is probably one of the most unstable, unpredictable, craziest journeys that you could ever do in your life? And it might be hard, it might be easy. It might be hard the whole time, hard some of the time, none of the time. You won't know what's going on until you're actually in the thick of it. And is that something that you're okay with? If it's not, can you get okay with it? Is there any scenario in which you're okay with that insaneness? And if not, then maybe that's your answer. Number 2, what are you going to do if it gets hard? If your finances, your mental health, your body, your relationship, if anything hits a wall or gets hard during this journey, are you going to be able to get through it? Or are you going to be able to find the tools and the support that you need? If you don't have that now, can you get that? Is that something that you're going to be able to find at some point around you to help you get through this journey? 3 was a little more personalized to me, but I'll try to explain it in a way that's general. My therapist said, running sucks and running is really hard, but running a marathon and finishing a marathon will give you a sense of pride and empowerment that nobody can take away from you. Something about you know, training for a marathon, running a marathon with people around you. You guys are all on this hard journey together. There's cheering at the end of it. You get a medal or whatever. You cross the finish line. You just do a really hard thing and you get it done. That will give you a sense of empowerment and accomplishment that is just very indescribable. And that's what she was trying to tell me at the time. All of that was years ago. And I am now 30 with a 2-year-old in the thick of motherhood. And I can definitely say that one, my heart explodes every single minute of every day that I look at my child. My heart explodes. I'm so in love. And motherhood has definitely been one of the most difficult journeys of my life. All my worst fears surrounding birth and postpartum and things came true. I had to lean really hard on the support, but the empowerment, the discovery, the new person I'm getting to know as a mom is just incredible. It really is.
I really need someone to tell me if having kids is worth it.
It's not. And I'm going to explain why. If you're new here, I'm Melissa, your millennial wife, mom, and homie, so I'm going to tell you like it is. It is not worth it if you are not ready or cannot mentally wrap your head around being a parent 24/7, no matter what. And that means if you have a loss in the family, if you're sick, if your partner is sick, if your partner passes away, if basically any unfortunate situation, you still need to show up and parent. It's not worth it if you are not ready or cannot wrap your head around that you will now become second. And when I say become second, it's not always, it's not forever, but at least for a specific amount of time until your child starts to get a little bit more autonomy. Their needs come before yours. It's not worth it if you have some type of, and you recognize some type of unresolved trauma, either from your childhood, past relationships, whatever the case is. It is not worth it if you have some type of unresolved trauma that you have shoved all the way down, do not want to explore, do not want to talk about, because I 100% guarantee you that that will resurface when you do become a parent. It's not worth it if you are only doing this because this is what my parents want, or this is what my husband wants, or this is what society dictates I should be doing. It's not worth it if you're trying to keep a man. Like, for real, parenting is one of the most realest things that you can do, because this really requires you to, like, it's not even a shift, like it's a whole new chapter. It's a whole new chapter in your book. Like, this is no longer, I am not the same Melissa that I was before I became a mom. And it's a whole new life. So if you are not ready to wrap your head around, like, my priorities are going to change, things are going to change, my needs, wants, friendships are going to change, relationships are going to change. If you are not ready to kind of understand that and go with, you know, the ebbs and the flows, then it's not worth it for you. It's not worth it for you. It is one of the most, to be a good parent, to be a good mother, it's one of the most selfless things. Not for a long time. That's why I have a thing on here, get yourself a life outside of motherhood. But it's one of the most selfless tasks that you can do when you're doing it right.
I really need someone to tell me if having kids is worth it.
I once heard a quote that was something like, "There is nothing in this human existence that can replace the experience of being a mother." And that has truly stuck with me. And my daughters too. I have had a hard go in terms of, I had a hardish pregnancy. I had a hardish delivery. My situation with her father, it's hard. There's a lot of hard things that have happened in this transition into becoming a mother, and it's true, you do lose yourself, but you find someone better. I think if you have a desire to be a mother, if you have a desire to have kids, it is 100% worth it to go through the death and the rebirth of who you are meant to be.
I really need someone to tell me if having kids is worth it.
There's a little 3-year-old girl named Summer on this app who has captivated hearts and minds, mostly because of her amazing vocabulary and her seemingly natural aptitude to being able to memorize things quickly, just understand things quickly, and you can already tell that she is her parents' pride and joy. She's clearly well loved, and her parents are very, very accomplished. Her mom's a lawyer, and her dad, I believe, is a doctor. Now, the only thing that concerns me is the comments. All through the comments, people saying things like, God, please let my baby be like this. I want a child, but only if they're like this. And the reason I find those comments concerning is that they betray the fact that people only want children under certain conditions. People only want children who are bright, quote unquote smart, quote unquote beautiful. Able-bodied is another huge one that most people will never admit, but that they subconsciously will always prefer that their children are. And in short, they want their children to be their pride and joy, but under very specific constraints of what that pride is. And this is because people count on their children to be a proxy of their own personal success. So if their child is not quote unquote successful, then they're not successful, and they take it out on their child. So for all those who might want children but are on the fence, consider this. Are you okay with having a child who does not turn out to be who you want them to be at all? Because if the answer is no to that question, you are not ready to be a parent, and you might not want to be a parent. So many people were raised by adults who clearly did not think through this process, and as a result had very abusive upbringings. Children are the ultimate gamble. You do not know what you're going to get, and there's no take backsies. People only ever consider themselves as becoming parents to what society would deem to be perfect children. Neurotypical, smart, beautiful, obedient, whatever it may be. There's never a plan for what may happen if their child is neurodivergent or not able-bodied. There's never a plan for what should happen if something happens to your child and they're no longer able to be self-sufficient into adulthood. Are you prepared to become a permanent caregiver? When people consider having children, they're enamored by the idea of having a tiny person who represents only the best qualities that they have instilled in their child. And if that child dares to grow up and maybe lose some of that quote-unquote intelligence or early signs of being a gifted child later on in life, they're punished for it by their parents. So when considering having a child, ask yourself in true honesty and clarity, how would you feel about having a child that does not meet quote-unquote societal standards for success? And if you can vow to truly love and protect that child and not harm them, then perhaps parenthood might be for you. But you'll never truly know until you're in the situation. I don't know if you guys have gone to the Regretful Parents subreddit, but I feel like that subreddit needs several trigger warnings because it is very, very saddening. Now, huge disclaimer, I fully support having a space for parents to go and vent about the unexpected things that they did not realize are part of parenthood and that are currently plaguing them, because parenthood is so often glorified without an understanding of exactly what it entails. Unfortunately, however, a lot of the stories center around shame that parents have that their kids didn't turn out as XYZ. And sadly, a lot of these sentiments come from parents who are parents to disabled children, who lament being round-the-clock caregivers by saying things like, I didn't sign up for this. Which obviously connotes that they only signed up to have an able-bodied child, and that is it, that is all. They were told that parenthood only lasts until the child is about 18 years old, and they bought into that, but now they're being faced with the possibility of being eternal caregivers to their child that they were told was going to be eventually independent. And even parents to able-bodied children who maybe are just not out of the house yet, or maybe slow to become independent, are trying to find ways to get their kids out because they're supposed to be out in the world and no longer under their roofs. That Reddit thread is truly filled with every kind of story from every walk of life. But the one underlying theme is that they all seem to feel like they walked into parenthood not understanding that it was a lifelong commitment. A commitment to a complete gamble whose outcome they really have no say in. The amount of resilience required from a parent and ongoing love required from a parent is simply too much to be on the fence about that kind of decision. So if you're not saying hell yes to the idea of raising a child with unexpected outcomes, then it's a no.